once you understand how to be a strategic thinker, it applies to anything you want to apply it to. You don't have to have a certain style of strategic thinking for business, another style of strategic thinking for parenting, another style of strategic thinking to be a trial attorney. Once you understand how to think strategically, it permeates over everything and it makes your life so much easier.
Welcome to the Life Coach Baker podcast. I'm Nicole Baker, life coach for perfectionists who want to set goals and actually follow through with them. I went to my first personal development seminar at the age of 1. Yes, I was quite literally born into this industry. But by 15, I started to implement this mindset mumbo jumbo I'd heard so much about, and it worked. As a recovering perfectionist myself, I've been able to set goals that are way out of my comfort zone and achieve them by doing things imperfectly, without self-judgment, and without the fear of their opinions. And now I help others to do the same. So if you are capital D done feeling like a hostage to this a-hole called perfectionism, then this show is for you. My goal is for you to leave each episode with tactical action steps that you can start to implement in your life now. I may be in my 20s. I may have the voice of a sassier Cinderella, but I've been doing this personal development-ish since I was a toddler. So let's dive in.
What is up, sweet, beautiful friends? Welcome back to another episode of the Life Coach Baker podcast. Today, I'm sitting down with April Porter. Now, April slid into my inbox and we talked about potential episode ideas, and immediately I was hooked onto her story. She's a world-renowned attorney, nationally recognized trial attorney, which no big deal. And then she turned into a award-winning multi-unit franchise owner. And it dawned on me, I was like, we've never even touched with a 10-foot pole the world of franchising. And I don't know about you all, but this was a world that was behind a locked door, covered in a lot of fog, covered in a lot of do not pass kind of stuff, because it was just, I thought it was just going to be so over my head. And I was like, this might be a really fun thing to explore on the podcast, because one of the things I love about this show is we're able to sit down and talk about subjects so we're able to know more about them. One of the big things around perfectionism is just again, that locked door, that fog, that do not cross signage that just says, oh, I don't know anything about that, so I don't need to learn. And it's why not get curious about it? Why not just kind of dip your toe in and start to kind of get the ins and outs of it and be a beginner in the new entire area? So this was actually a really fun episode to me, not only sitting down with April and learning from her. This is such an understatement, wealth of knowledge. She knows so much about this world, but also getting to talk to her about what makes a good business. And trust me, the homegirl knows what she's talking about. But then also she really opened up about her own struggles with perfectionism. And this was really interesting for me, and you'll hear it on the show. I was kind of taken aback. I was actually really surprised that she had such a relationship with perfectionism. And it was really fun to dive in with her. I'm so excited for you guys to listen to this episode. Without further ado, let's dive in with my chat with April Porter. Welcome, 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 April, to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
I'm so excited to chat with you because, okay, first and foremost, I want to start with your story, your journey, because it's so fascinating. It's something that immediately grabbed my attention, and I love for listeners to get the full scope of it.
Sure. It's so funny. So many people find my journey fascinating. And of course, having lived it, I'm like, whatever, right?
It's like the grass is always greener. We're I don't really know what you're talking about.
But so I started off as an attorney. I was a prosecuting attorney. So I prosecuted criminals for crimes that they committed. And I very quickly established a specialty in domestic violence, sexual assaults, child abuse, and homicides. Mm-hmm. So for about 10 years, I was a trial attorney. I was in trial all the time. And it was the worst of the worst cases, right? But it was the best victims that I was advocating for. And really, it was a very fulfilling purpose to know that you're really fighting for people who have been put in a position in their lives where they absolutely could not fight for themselves, right? And so I did that for about 10 years. And while it was super interesting and really fun, quite honestly, to like argue and try to convince a jury to like find people guilty, it also took its toll, and it was heavy, and so it was about 10 years in where I was like, I think that I don't want to do this anymore. But to be quite honest, after you've done that type of law, it's hard to like go sit behind a desk and read contracts. It's just super boring.
Yeah, no kidding.
So I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I've always had a side gig, even when I was an attorney. So that led me to business ownership. And I really felt like franchise opportunity was the perfect gateway into business ownership, because when you invest in a franchise, you're investing in a name brand that brings along brand recognition and some systems and processes. So you don't have to build absolutely everything from the ground up. So that's what we did. And it was kickboxing gyms. And so I opened my first kickboxing gym in 2014, and quickly that expanded to 4 locations in less than 3 years.
Oh my gosh.
Which, we went from like, I was the only employee to we had 25 employees.
Now, you as a franchise owner, are you responsible for all 25 of those employees, or is the franchise above you responsible for it?
Oh, no. I'm responsible for growing my individual stores, for managing the employees, managing all the day-to-day, the financials, like every aspect of business ownership you are responsible for as a franchisee. You're just doing it within the rules of the franchise. Wow. So you have to stick to like certain brand colors, certain systems inside the business. Like we were a kickboxing gym, so we couldn't decide, hey, Sundays were closed. Let's invite the local yoga teacher in and have her teach yoga classes in our gym because it's empty. We couldn't do that because that was against the rules. So it's stuff like that are kind of limit you in a franchise. But other than that, you're responsible for the actual business as if you had started it as a mom and pop on your own.
It's so fun because franchising is something we have not even touched with the 10-foot pole on this podcast. And I feel like a lot of the time entrepreneurs, at least the ones that I've seen, we don't really think about it as an option. What made you say, this is the franchising, it's definitely the way I'm going?
Well, it's interesting because it wasn't an interest in franchising that led me there. It was actually an interest in the kickboxing gym.
Yeah.
So I live in St. Louis. I grew up in Kansas City, which is 4 hours away across the state. For people who don't know, Kansas City is actually in Missouri. It's not in Kansas.
For those who are bad at geography like myself, I appreciate you. Thank you.
I mean, it's kind of quasi in both, but really, I grew up in Missouri, Kansas City. And one of my high school friends, she had opened one of these kickboxing gyms in Kansas City. And this is back now. I have to say things change very quickly. Mm-hmm. And this is going to illustrate how quickly things change. This was back in 2013. And there was literally no such thing as paid advertising on Facebook.
Whoa.
And there were no Facebook groups. It was literally your news feed, and that was it.
How did you build 4 in 3 years? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's how we did it. So, but that's how I saw her gym, because they created a Facebook page for it. And she was posting, and I was like, oh my God, this place looks awesome. Like, I want to work out there. I wish there was one here in St. Louis. That's how it started. And I told my sister, you should go check out this gym because it looks so cool. So my sister did. They joined it. My sister's the one who called me and said, hey, it's a franchise. And my husband and I are thinking we're going to franchise it. I looked at my husband. I'm like, and my baby sister can franchise this thing. We can do it. So
as a younger sister, I feel that on a spiritual level.
Yeah. So that's actually what got those wheels turning about, maybe this is what we've been looking for as far as something for me to transition to out of the practice of law. And that's how that happened.
I have so many questions, but I know your story also does not end there. So I want to keep going and give listeners again that full scope. So you built 4 in 3 years. Then what led you to that next phase, which we'll dive into?
Yeah. So we had said, you know what, if we're going to do this, we're doing this to truly build wealth. We're not doing this to replace my job or my income that I have as an attorney. And so we agreed to open 3 when we talked to the franchisor. So when we signed our agreement, we signed 3 agreements.
Wow.
Then we knew we were going to open 3 eventually. We didn't know how long it was going to take us or anything like that. Ultimately, we opened 4. But because of that, like I said, when I started, I was the only employee in the business. And that's how our franchisor taught us to become profitable more quickly, is by saving on the payroll. So I went to the gym. Our gym at the time opened at 8:00 in the morning. I opened the gym. In our model, we demonstrated every single exercise, and it was a circuit. And so literally every 3 minutes, I was physically demonstrating 2 exercises from 8 in the morning until 8 in the evening, with a 2-hour break in the middle of the day.
Oh my God. How did your body do that?
I have never been so exhausted in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I did that for 3 months. And at the 3-month mark, I was profitable and had enough room in our monthly income where I could bring on 2 part-time employees and was able to get a break. But it was at that moment that I was standing there in my gym. I knew I had these people to hire. And I was like, okay, hold up. I'm going to be able to train these 2 people, and they're going to learn exactly the secret sauce of the style that I use and everything that's helping to make this such a success. Because at the time, it truly was very personality driven. Like I said, we had much more limited marketing means than exists today. Yeah. And so I realized, I'm confident I can get these 2 trained to be like mini me's, little clones of me. But I have 3 of these to open, and I cannot be in 3 places at once. I cannot train every person that is going to work for me in these gyms. It's just not going to be possible if I want to scale them. And I was like, so I have to find a way to make sure that I'm going to train these 2 people, and they can train the next 2, and the next 2 can train the next 2, but they will all be trained with that flair that makes it our signature culture. Because that's really how we built our gyms, was having a community and a culture in it. And my franchisor, that is not your franchisor. You get the systems and the processes to make it run and work, but you don't get what we call an ownership cloning system. So truly understanding how to train your employees, not just on being taskmasters, but on being leaders that have the confidence and the drive to see a problem and fix it without contacting you, to grow the gym while you're not there, grow your facility while you're not there. And so I was like, okay, I have to create that. So I did. And I created that. And ultimately, when we had 4 locations, I had a manager over each location, and the managers were doubling the revenues. Yes. And I wasn't going into the gyms at all. I mean, I'd go in for my workout in the mornings. And other than that, I worked at home, and I opened other businesses. I had my attention on other places, and my team was literally doubling revenues in the locations.
How did you do that? Like, how did you come up with that cloning system? Because I know a lot of people in our audience whose businesses are in the process of scaling, they're now realizing, oh my gosh, like I can't do this alone. I need team members, or I need, like, I know we have a lot of voice teachers listening to this. They're hiring on other voice teachers to practice under them. Like, how did you come up with that system? And how did you come up with it? And B, how did you make it so flippin' successful?
Right. So, well, one, I really took a look at the little extra things that we were doing, that made it, so special.
Yeah.
And I truly created a training system that documented and taught all of those things, but taught it in a way that regardless of the way someone learns, they could digest it, retain it, and regurgitate it. So I think so many times people are training their employees the same way that they learn, right? I mean, you show me something once, I can do it. Mm-hmm. I'm type A. A lot of business owners are type A, high achievers, right? So you show me how to do it once, I can do it. That's not every employee walking through your door. Mm-hmm. So if that's how you're going to train people, you're setting up most of your employees for failure, not success. And that's where a lot of that frustration comes from the business owner side, when people aren't able to just get it on the first try. And then they're like, I told you this, you messed it up again. And there's a lot of blame. Then that leads into blame instead of accountability. So it's a little snowball effect where, you're trying to be a good boss, but you've really set yourself up to be not a great boss, and you've set up your team to not be able to succeed. So that's step one, is you have to get truly into a training program, more detail than you would ever imagine. And I always would explain to my team, it might seem like I'm micromanaging you in the training system, but once you learn this, then you will never be micromanaged. You will know how to do everything or know how to figure it out. Yeah. And that's really the second piece of the puzzle. You have to be able to develop people into leaders. And in order to do that, you have to be a leader. You have to understand what it is to be a leader. You have to understand how leaders speak. Most leaders, they're pulling people along with them. They're inspiring people. People want to follow them. That's really what makes you a leader. You can't just say, I'm a leader because I'm a business owner. You're only a leader if somebody wants to follow you. If no one wants to follow you, you're just like someone hanging out.
Standing on an island. Hello.
Yeah. So you have to understand, how does a leader think? How does a leader speak to people? How does a leader inspire people? How does a leader hold others accountable in a way that empowers them and doesn't degrade them? Right. So you have to do that work. And that's a lot of work that you have to do on yourself in order to walk the walk and talk the talk. And that's how most of the people are going to learn. Even they're going to learn from the lessons you're teaching them, but they're going to learn by emulating you as well. Yeah. So it's really that combination of things.
And I know you now work with a lot of people who are building out their franchises and doing these processes. For people who have that, how do I say this nicely, need to stay in control, how do you coach them, or how do you talk them through, you have to release control on your employees? Because I know in talking to a lot of business owners, when it comes time to hire on people, they're like, well, what if they do it wrong? Or what if they don't do it the way that I do? How do you navigate that conversation with them?
Yeah. So for us, that's a process. That's actually part of our program. Our program, we call it the Infinite Franchisee.
Awesome title.
Thank you. Yeah, it's 12 months, and it actually is very structured to lead the business owner from one thing to the next. So, sometimes people get a little frustrated at the beginning because they're like, but I need to work on marketing. And it's like, trust me, if you don't get this stuff down first, we're going to be layering marketing strategy onto a foundation that can't support the strategy.
Brilliant.
Right. So, so part of it is really getting people to understand why. This sounds bad too, but trust me, I say it with love. why your business was not built correctly yet. It's not currently, it does not currently have a good foundation. And that's something that I had to learn as well. Many times, especially in franchising, the franchisor has different interests than the franchisee.
Yeah.
It is in the franchisor's best interests to get you to a certain point, which is like profitable.
Yeah.
And hopefully you're going to have enough of a margin where you're satisfied. And then it's more profitable for them to have you open a second location and just get it to profitability than it is to take that first location and increase profitability. Because they're earning a percentage. So just to give this example, like to make it really clear, let's say that your franchisor earns a 10% royalty, and that's what you pay your franchisor every month. So if your business, if profitability with a cushion so that you can make a decent living, you could make $60,000 to $100,000 a year. If that's a $20,000 a month gross revenue and the franchisor is taking 10%, then the franchisor is getting $2,000 a month. Now, if you could increase that single location to make $30,000 a month, that's an extra 10 grand in your pocket. That is for some like life-changing difference in wealth.
Yeah.
But if the franchisor focuses on providing you the new strategies and the new tools to take you to that next level, they only make $3,000 a month. Yeah. However, if they just get you to open a second location and get you up to that 20 grand, they're going to make $4,000 a month.
Yeah.
So and some people get really upset about this, right? They get upset and blame their franchisor. And the reality is the franchisor's business model is to sell franchises. And the more franchises that they sell, the more brand awareness nationally that your brand gets, and the easier it is for you to pull customers through the door. Yeah. So in a sense, it's in your best interest as well to allow your franchisor to do what they need to do to increase the number of units, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes people get mad at their franchisor, but instead of getting upset with the franchisor, it's just about changing your perspective and understanding. Like, I bought a model that is proven to be profitable from the franchisor. If I want to take that model and I want to scale it to above profitability per unit, it's up to me to bring business acumen and the mindset that takes it to that next level.
Yeah.
It takes different strategies to go from 6 to 7 figures and 7 to 8 figures and 0 to 6. Every level of business takes a different set of strategies. You can't just go from 0 to 6 and then be like, okay, this got us to 6. We'll keep doing what we're doing and we'll go to 7. It doesn't work like that.
Well, and that really brings me into my next question, which is, when it comes to scaling these to 6, 7, 8 figures, what does it take? Because especially, I mean, you started when marketing was a very different format. Like, what do you tell people? How do you build these customer bases? And I'll start there. That's my first question.
Yeah. So the mistake that most people are making in franchising, and this is the same mistake that people are making in small businesses. In fact, many of our clients don't even own a franchise. Even though we market everything to franchisees, they're like, well, could you help someone who's not in a franchise? We're like, sure. It's the same thing. Business strategy applies to any industry, any product, any service. Bingo. If you understand how to do true profit building business strategies. So for someone who is to grow your customer base, let me back up. To grow your customer base, what it really takes is you getting out of the business. I know you guys have heard this a million times and you're
Wait,
like,
I haven't heard it said this way. Tell me more. Tell me more. I'm curious.
You haven't heard it said this way. Okay.
Not said this way. No.
Okay. So as long as you are in the business, you have literally bought yourself a job.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So let's break that down. Let's break it down. I always use a florist as an example. I don't know why, probably because one of my side gigs when I was younger was making flowers for weddings. But, so you love making flowers. You love making bouquets. Everybody loves your bouquets and they're telling you, oh my God, you're so amazing. You should open a business, right? And so you go out and you decide, yes, I'm going to open a flower business. I'm going to be a florist. You open the business. Now it's your responsibility to grow that business. That's your actual job that you signed up for. You signed up to be an executive who looks at numbers, who figures out how to make those numbers increase and to grow that business using strategy. But that's not what you're doing. You're making flowers. You're making flower arrangements. Why? Because you love it and that's your passion. And in your mind, all you've ever known is the position of an employee. So when you imagined owning your own business, you didn't imagine crunching over marketing strategy and getting really high on like sales skills that are going to increase conversion rates to 85%. That wasn't the things that you were jonesing about when you dreamed of owning a business. You were thinking, I'm going to make flowers every day and love my job. And so what happens is you get into business and you start making those flowers. Well, that's an important piece of the puzzle. You have to have flowers to sell to your customers. But if you're standing in your store making flower arrangements and you've got all these vases of beautiful flower arrangements around the store, but no one walking in to buy them, it is going to fail.
Yeah.
And that's where most franchisees go, is they're usually coming out of being an employee. They're thinking, I'm going to get freedom and I'm going to get an opportunity to have an income without a ceiling. But when they get into it, their franchisor is like, okay, here's how you ring people up at the cash register. Here's here's how you teach your lower level employees the pieces of the puzzle they're going to do. But you have to be there monitoring them the whole time to make sure they do it right. And so you get caught up in the weeds. You can't see the forest for the trees, like they say. So you're there being one of the trees and the business isn't growing. You have to get out of the business. You have to extract yourself from the forest, get in a helicopter, fly up above the forest and check out the whole forest. Because otherwise you can't, think about it. If you're in a forest and there's a forest fire a mile off, you won't see it. Think about how long it will take you to see it. And that's a really important point right now because we have a recession on the coming around potentially. There's been a huge change in our economic climate. There's a huge change going on right now in our political climate. All of these things will affect you and the way that you do business, but you're worried about how, the bathroom's getting cleaned, instead of these environmental threats that are approaching your business. On the other side of you, there may be environmental opportunities that you're not taking advantage of that could propel you and double your profits in 6 months, like my gyms did, right? So you can't do that if you're in the forest, if you're in the trees, if you're making the flower arrangements. Get in the helicopter and go to the top. And let your people do what they need to do to cultivate, the forest or the flowers or whatever.
Well, and I also feel like if you're a solopreneur, like if you haven't brought on any people yet, or if you have 1 or 2 employees, like sometimes you might need to be like, okay, for this next week, I am doing nothing but helicopter. Like I'm going to step away from making the flower arrangements. It can survive 1 week without me touching them. And I'm just going to do the helicopter work. If that sets you up for 6, 7, 8, 12 months of success, do that. Like, I think people forget that they're allowed to step away. The world will not fall beneath their feet.
I think actually a better practice, and this is what we advocate for, is you need to be spending at the minimum, and this is to start, at the minimum, you need to be spending 20% of your time on growth activities.
Strategy. Say that again. I want everyone to hear that one more time because that is so important. I'm spitting it in my microphone. Oh my God.
Yeah. So you need to be spending 20% of your time on growth activities. So that means getting on your calendar and blocking your time. Now, if you are, if you're working 50 hours a week, which I know a lot of you out there are probably doing more than 50 hours a week, that's another conversation because you cannot keep that up forever. And burnout. I was
going to say, I want to touch on that in a minute.
Yeah, burnout is going to burn the forest down just like the other will. But you have to, let's say it's 50 hours a week, then that means 10 hours out of your week has to be very strategic growth time. Now, here's where people really struggle with this because we work on this. We host a free masterclass several times a year, and I actually walk people through these hands-on exercises, and they start to see like where they're spending their time and what activities and how far that's getting them. So when what happens is people will say, okay, I'm supposed to spend 10 hours a week on growth activities. So I'm going to do what April said, and I'm going to block my calendar 10 hours a week on growth activities, and I'll do 40 hours a week on all of the tasks that have to get done. Yeah. The mistake they end up making is that they clear the like answering emails, making the flowers, bookkeeping, all those things. They clear that out and they have 10 hours sitting there. And then they're like, okay, I'm going to work on my social media because that's marketing and that helps me grow. I'm going to work on creating a digital ad because that's marketing and that helps me grow. I'm going to work on setting up some sales appointments because sales is how I bring in revenue and that helps me grow. Yeah. None of that is a growth strategy.
Interesting. Okay. So what would you consider a growth strategy then?
Growth strategy would be like actually spending time on strategic planning, spending time on your marketing strategy. Almost every small business owner I come in contact with, and you can't see me right now, but it looks like I have my hands around someone's neck because I just want to strangle everybody over this. But almost every small business owner that I come in contact with does not have a marketing strategy. They have a marketing plan.
And what's the difference? So you talk that out.
Yeah, I could try. So,
oh my God.
This is a much longer conversation, but most people are marketing using what they are thinking are strategies or thinking I think of them as tactics, 3 tactics. Tactic number 1, I think I'm supposed to be doing this. I think I'm supposed to be running a digital ad. I think I'm supposed to be posting on Facebook every day. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Everyone who is prioritizing only posting on Instagram, you are doing this.
Yes.
And there's a lot of you. I've talked to a lot of them.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So like whatever it is you think you're supposed to be doing, you're doing that and you think it's a strategy. That's not a strategy.
Thank you.
Number two is I have no idea what I should be doing, but I've heard about this. Somebody cold called me or, cold DM me, or I got an email about this. So I'm going to try it. Trial and error. I don't know. So I'm going to try it. I talk about this as throwing spaghetti on the wall, right? It's like, I know that if I cook spaghetti long enough, it will be done, but I'm not sure when it's going to be done. So I throw it on the wall. I see what sticks. Yeah. That's all you're doing. Literally your strategy, the strategy that you have or that you're executing when you do that is how to run out of your capital as fast as possible.
Interesting. Okay.
Number 3 is this worked for another business owner I know. And in the franchising world, it's, hey, this worked for another franchisee, so I'm going to do it. That's not a strategy either. All 3 of these things have one thing in common, that you have no idea what a marketing strategy is. And rather than investing in yourself to become more knowledgeable about what a marketing strategy is, how to leverage it for your business, and how to grow, you keep spending your time, energy, and money on the next shiny object of marketing. And all that does is suck up your time, your energy, and your money.
Yeah. I feel like it's also very reactive too.
Oh, totally.
Like, and that it's like living your business on survival mode. That's exhausting.
100%. In fact, that's how most business owners are living their business all the time, is every decision you're making in your business is reacting to I won't even say a problem, because it doesn't have to be, the house doesn't have to be burning down to be reactionary. It's just a situation in your business. For instance, it's like, I have too much to do, so I'm going to hire someone.
Yeah.
That's a reaction to you being overwhelmed and having more to do than you can complete. How do you know you're really hiring the right person, that you're going to delegate the right things to them? You don't, because you don't have a strategy set up as to who should be your first hire. What should they take over to help you grow as fast as possible? Just getting things off your plate doesn't necessarily mean you're going to grow.
Mm-mm.
You got to leverage it. You got to understand how to leverage people, how to leverage money, how to leverage strategy. So you asked me for a couple examples of what is marketing strategy. Understanding the difference between ideal customer, niche, customer avatar. That is one, that's a strategy.
I really definitely want to dissect that in a minute.
Diving into customer avatar, and you start to lead every decision, not just in marketing, every decision you make in your business. Are you going to have a new product line? Are you going to change your prices? Are you going to, how are you going to sell it? Are you going to hire an employee? And what should that employee look like? What core values do you want that employee to have? Yeah. All of those decisions should be starting with your customer avatar. If you don't have a customer avatar, you don't know what that is, then you are going blind into every decision that you make in your business. So that's a marketing strategy. Yeah. We teach a marketing strategy that is always knowing, like right now, we know exactly for the next 3 months what our marketing strategy is, which pieces of the funnel it touches, how it's moving people through the pipeline so that they go to other areas of the funnel until they get down to a sales consultation, right?
Yeah.
So that's a strategy. The reason that I am so talented and such a good strategist, and I'm going to toot my own horn.
Yeah, girl, toot it.
So the reason that I'm so good at this is because once you understand how to be a strategic thinker, it applies to anything you want to apply it to. You don't have to have a certain style of strategic thinking for business, another style of strategic thinking for parenting, another style of strategic thinking to be a trial attorney. Once you understand how to think strategically, it permeates over everything, and it makes your life so much easier. Strategic thinking and strategy is really about how to be persuasive and how to understand your objective and then create the environmental conditions to predictably lead to that result.
So for a small business, like I'm talking like business with 1 to 3 employees, what would you say would be an example of that? Because I know a lot of listeners might be like, sales funnels and like leading them into like, oh my God, like I need to have all these in place. And it's like, I want to highlight for people, like it takes years to build that out. And especially like for a bigger business, right? But also you can do this with a small business, a new business, a business with 1 product or 1 service. Like can you give an example in like a smaller setting?
I mean, 1, I don't think it takes years. I think you could literally build out your marketing strategy and a sales funnel in a single day. It's just not even a single day.
I want to have a conversation with you.
You could do it in 30 minutes if you just understand that it's more about the strategic thinking than it is about all the bells and whistles that people are telling you need to create sales funnels. It's about the customer journey. Yeah. So, I mean, if you're a landscaping company and you have a client and you're working on their lawn, but the neighbor next door has no idea. They might see people mowing the lawn, but they don't know that it's, Matt's lawn care system, right? Mm-hmm. So the first thing is getting the person next door. You don't want to be a stranger to them. You want them to know who you are. So what would you do? What is strategic in order to do that? Put your people in uniforms that have your logo all over it. Put the truck, make sure that the logo's all over the truck, all over the equipment, not just the truck, because if the neighbor's in the backyard and they see someone mowing the lawn in the backyard, they're not going to see the truck. So how do you make sure that it's on the lawnmower itself? Could you create signs that sit on the lawnmower itself or some way, right? In addition to the uniform. Could you have a practice where after your guys mow the lawn, they go and put door hangers on the 10 houses each direction saying, we just mowed your neighbor's lawn and actually put the address of the neighbor. These people are probably friends. If the lawn looks nice, it's a quick no-brainer for somebody to be like, oh, shoot, I'll just have them mow my lawn when they're mowing, so-and-so's lawn. So that's the first thing. You have to get them to not be a stranger with you. The next thing is you need to nurture them. So once you did the door hangers, you jot down, okay, what are the addresses I put the door hangers at? Well, I need to nurture this relationship. I've introduced myself to the neighbor. How do I nurture it? Maybe I send them a postcard now. Maybe I send them a little gift, a little outdoor fan that kind of goes along with landscaping, something like that with your logo on it. Maybe I invite them to a contest. And so that they'll click on a QR code and they'll enter my actual email list. Now I have their email and their phone number. I can continue to nurture them from there. I can call them. Ultimately, I say, hey, we're running a special for the 4th of July where if you're right next door to somebody's lawn we mow, your first one's half off. Would you like that deal? And they're going to say, well, gosh, of course, you're going to be here anyway. It's 4th of July. I don't want to mow the lawn. It would be great to have somebody else do it for me, right? This is all strategy. Why? Because I started with the customer. Yeah. So when you start with the customer, you think about the fact that they're busy on 4th of July. They just want to enjoy the holiday. They don't want to have to mow their own lawn in addition to buying decorations and food and getting the house ready, right? So there's a desire there that you could fill. We're going to take that off your plate. Yeah. So you run your promotion to hit that desire. Now they create the sales consult. You close the sale for the first lawn mowing job. It's then about retaining your customer, which there's a strategy to doing that as well. So that's an example of you could sit down and just think about that customer and walk through and create that journey. And we never talked about a digital funnel in that entire example.
And I appreciate that. I love that. It was all things I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about the QR code and all those brilliant things. Hey, you're really good at this.
Thanks. Cause I did not have that prepared.
Well, I mean, I really asked you a question off the fly.
If you've been listening to the show, or if you're just a living, breathing person in the 21st century, odds are that you're a perfectionist. But did you know that there are 3 different types of perfectionism? After working with perfectionists for the past 2 years and being one myself for longer than that, I would have to be an ostrich with my head stuck deep in the sand to not realize that there are different styles of perfectionism, each one with their own self-sabotaging patterns. To find out which perfectionist type you are, plus learn helpful next steps that will get you out of those patterns of self-destruction, take the free quiz by following the link in the show notes or by going to lifecoachbaker.com/quiz. Now, on to the episode.
I have one last question before we get into our segments, and that is Bob. I'd love to talk about Bob. First of all, who is Bob and why is it, or how can it screw us over in business?
Yeah. So Bob, damn old Bob, he is, that's what we call business owner bias. Mm-hmm. Business owner bias. And business owner bias is when we're looking at things just from our perspective and we're not really looking at them from our customer perspective. I can give you guys a great example because this actually happened this past week with a newer client, and we're working through perspective changes and how to really like identify when you're thinking when Bob is interfering with your thinking and how to flip it. So I have a client who owns a spa, and she was saying how when she goes to hair salons, she notices that some of the stylists are the pricing is based upon their experience. So you know, if you want a haircut from a master stylist, it's more expensive than from a junior stylist. Mm-hmm. And she was like, I'm wondering if I should do that with my massage therapist. Ooh. And I said, well, what do you think your customer is going to think about that? Like if your first time customer walks in and there's a menu and it has master masseuse, junior masseuse, like, you know, what are some of the things that might run through their head? And she comes back and she keeps saying, well, when I'm a customer at the hair salon, I want the master because I want to get a good haircut. And I'm like, I'm not talking about you. Yeah. And then she says, well, I asked their spa owners and they do it. And they say that the people who are the masters, they have their books they have more people on their books. So they're the ones that book up every day. And I'm like, I don't care what anybody else is doing. So there was like every question I asked, it came back from the business owner perspective. Yeah. And she was having a really hard time flipping. And it's because she's been in a habit for years thinking this way as, well, I don't know if it's a good idea or not. And that's ultimately the question is, I don't know if it's a good idea or not. Well, it's only a good idea if your customer thinks it's a good idea. Yeah. Because they're the ones that are making the buying decision.
I really am glad we touched on this because this is an audience. A lot of people in this audience are perfectionists or recovering perfectionists. And when we're in perfectionism brain, we are so self-centered. Like, and I'm not saying that in like a bad person. Like you're just thinking about yourself. How can I be enough? How can I live up to this expectation? And that fucks you over in business. 10 out of 10. And I'm so glad you brought it up because I've never heard it from this perspective, but we can feel it. I mean, I can literally like feel in my body when I am thinking from Nicole and when I'm thinking from customer avatar. And when I'm making a program or running a special or doing some kind of launch or doing anything in my business, if I'm thinking as Nicole, it does not work as well every time. No. Because I'm also reacting. I'm reacting left and right.
Right. 100%. And it won't. And that's what also gets people with that whole, like, people think of it as trial and error, but I like to say it's more start and stop. So it's like, okay, this seems like a great idea. I'm going to do it. And then you do it and you're like, oh my God, that didn't work the way I thought it was going to do. All right. I'm going to stop doing it. It's not working. I'm going to stop doing it. Now I'm going to do the next thing. Right. And it's like, anything in your business, it needs 90 to 120 days to even like ramp up enough to give you the data that tells you if it's working or not. And sometimes the reason it's not working isn't because it was a bad idea. It's because of one small thing that you need to tweak to make it and knock it out of the park result. And so that gets a lot of business owners too. And that actually happens because we are right now through the digital age, our brains are programmed to expect not just instant gratification, but to expect the anticipation of our needs. So think about it. You go into Amazon, you look at a product, and if you scroll down, it'll say people who bought this also bought these other 3 products. So it's anticipating your needs before you even are like, oh gosh, I guess I will need those 2 things. Let me put them in my cart. So anticipating your product goes beyond instant gratification, because at least instant gratification, you know what you want, and then it's instantly gratified. Now, the digital age is telling us what we want before we even realized it. Yeah. So all of this plays into this impatience that we have and this expectation that we're going to have an instantaneous, if not the instantaneous result we desire, we're going to have instantaneous information and data that tells us if it's working. And when we don't get that, we panic
Yeah.
Right. And we start the next thing. We stop that and we start the next thing. And you're not giving your business an opportunity to grow. I mean, think about it. Think if you were like, just go back to a baby, because all of your businesses are babies.
Yeah.
Right? All the babies. So, I mean, like if the baby's trying to walk and falls down a couple of times and you were like, so stop. You're just not getting it.
Yeah.
Let's try something else. Let's see if you could like fly, because you can't crawl. So or you can't, you can't walk. So let's try, I mean, when you say it like that, it sounds so ridiculous, right? But sometimes we have to take it back to that level to be able to understand what we're doing that maybe is sabotaging our own efforts.
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because it's like, I feel like so many of us, especially who run businesses primarily marketing on social media, where that means you're spending a lot of time on social media. You don't have to, but that's a whole different topic. There's so much of like, oh, well, I need to be at this level. So how do I get there as fast as possible? And you jump over, bringing it back to the beginning of our conversation, that foundation. It's suddenly made out of sand, because again, it's like off of the shoulds. And how this all just ties together, I really want people to see this, because there is nothing wrong with going back to basics in your business. In fact, do it often. Like, serious. I think that, like, I mean, me and my clients will go through like we'll revisit very frequently, like ideal customer, niche. How is the niche working? Does it need to be tweaked? Does it need to be niched down, niched out? Like, we'll go back to that really often, because you're never done in business. It's never 100%. Just like, okay, I got there and like, woohoo, we're good. Like, you're always growing, you're always evolving, which is both the like blessing and also the like, oh boy, here we go, but it's part of the game.
Right. And I mean, in my experience, in most general small businesses, not necessarily in franchises, because franchises, the brand does a lot of the niche work for you. Yeah. But in the general small business owners, the first niche you pick is never even a niche.
No,
it's not. It's like, okay, so instead of 7 billion people on the planet that we're focusing on 6 billion. Okay.
Oh, your one, Nicole, feels so seen right now. So seen.
Yeah. So, I mean, but that's the thing is, as you evolve as a business owner, as you become a more experienced strategic thinker, as you learn, as you invest in yourself, this is the biggest thing that I just want to pound into people's heads. Stop investing in tactics first. Invest in yourself. If you are not investing in yourself, you are not evolving in a way to be able to evaluate what strategies and tactics are actually going to take you to your goals. Therefore, you keep throwing away time, money, and energy on these tactics, hoping that it's finally going to get you to where you want. Whereas if you invest in yourself, you are going to learn things and evolve as a business owner where you can, in a split second, look at a tactic and be like, nope, that's not for me. That's not going to work for me. Or maybe it might work, but it's not in alignment with what my current strategy is. So it'd be a total veering off into left field and derail us, right? Yeah. You're also going to be able to identify and say, oh my gosh, this is amazing. It's going to make my life so much easier. It's right in alignment with my strategy, only it's going to automate things and save me on payroll. You will be able to do those things because you have elevated your own knowledge and your own strategy.
Thank you. Like, mic drop. Like, oh my gosh. I want to ask you two questions I ask every guest. And that is, first and foremost, what is a small or big goal you either accomplished or took steps towards this week?
This week?
Oh,
my gosh, it's only Tuesday.
We'll go till past Tuesday or this month, whatever you want to do.
No. Actually, I continually refine our program so that it's more structured and more clear and sets people up for success based on understanding where they are. It's based on the customer journey and the customer perspective, everybody, but understanding where they are in that perspective and journey, and how much time they need in order to accomplish what we're working on in that moment. So sometimes people need like 2 weeks in order to be able to understand a lesson, digest the lesson, implement the lesson, get feedback on that implementation, and then revise it.
Yeah.
Other times they just need a like wake up call.
Yeah.
Right. And so, so this week, what I'm doing is, and we rebranded too. So I'm like creating a new membership portal with my team. It's all new branded, and it's very, very like organized, where it's just makes it such an easy way for people to really understand how they're progressing through the program.
Stellar. That's awesome. And then, how are you imperfect this week?
Oh, how was I imperfect this week? Well, I am a recovering perfectionist. So I'm really,
I'm gonna interject. I'm so sorry. I'm kind of surprised to hear that.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know why.
I don't know.
I mean,
I guess it was like, I hear you as like very, like, okay, get it done. Like, and, I do work with a lot of very high overachiever perfectionists, but can I ask a quick follow-up question before we finish this one? How did perfectionism show up for you in franchising and building out this business?
Well, first of all, perfectionism has showed up my whole life until I started really investing in myself and getting and understanding how it was sabotaging me. And why I say I'm a recovering perfectionist is because those habits, have been ingrained in me my whole life. And if I'm not paying attention, then it'll sneak its little way in there. And then I have to be able to like take a breath and self-assess, right?
Yeah.
So when I'm feeling anxious, when I'm feeling overwhelmed in business, things like that, sometimes I just have to do that little check with myself and say, okay, am I overwhelmed because of the reason I believe it's overwhelming? Or is it me trying to control this situation and make it perfect that is contributing to the overwhelm and the anxiety? In which case, then now I could be like, okay, I'm going to release that, and then we're going to move forward. But I think that it does take work. It takes a lot of work on yourself, because in my opinion, and you might teach this, but perfectionism is really tied to how you receive love and growing up, like how you felt you needed to behave in order to receive love. Mm-hmm. And so those are things that, even when you work on it a lot, it doesn't just go away. It's a constant work in progress, and being, as they say, understanding it is the first part of the battle, right?
Definitely.
So that's why I say a recovering perfectionist. Yeah.
Thank you so much for talking that out and being so vulnerable.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. Going back to the original question, how were you imperfect this week?
Okay. So this week, the reason I mentioned that I was recovering perfectionist is because my perfectionist self would have seen this past week as being imperfect. However, who I am and who I work to be does not identify it as being imperfect. I don't really think of it like that. I think of it in terms of giving myself grace.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just everyone highlight that on your journal, on your forehead, just everywhere.
Right. So I'll be really honest. I think I can get through this without choking up, but we had to put my dog down last week.
I'm so
And
sorry.
yes, it was. So last week was a very, very difficult week for me. And I'm still grieving the loss of my dog. And so my work week has not looked anything like what a normal work week would look like. At times, like it was hard for me to have a conversation just because I felt really foggy. I didn't want to work. So sometimes I just went and laid down because I just was grieving. And and we have a lot to do, just like every other business, right? There's always more to do than you could possibly ever get done. And that's what I always tell people. There's always going to be more to do than you can ever actually get done. So you got to let go of that because you'll never get it all done. But I mean, if, a perfectionist, and maybe the old perfectionist me would have really like allowed that knowledge that I wasn't working all of the hours during the week that I could have allowed that to put additional anxiety, additional stress on the situation, because I could have attributed guilt to that. I could have attributed feelings of inadequacy, feelings that I was going to disappoint my team and let people down, right? And I could have taken all of that on, but I did not. Instead, I'm like, this is what I need right now. This is what I need. And this is ultimately how I will come out of this on the other side, to a place of acceptance and a place of love and a place where I can be uber productive once I've moved through the grief. Right.
Yeah.
And so some things fell through the cracks. Some things were like, I had to make some apologies here and there because I just, dropped the ball on a couple things, but that's life, and people are very understanding. And, so anyway, so that's what comes to mind, is that there were a lot of, quote, imperfect things, but I'm not keeping score of when I'm perfect or imperfect. I'm just like, what do I need in order to be graceful to myself, give myself the mental health and the love that I deserve from myself? And that's what ultimately will make me a success.
The words thank you seem so inadequate, but thank you so much for pulling back the curtain and really talking about that. Because I don't know about you, but, we hear on podcasts or audiobooks and we hear these people talk about like, this is how you're successful. This is how you make a successful business. Go, 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 go. And again, it just like does this download of like, oh my God, there's so many things I need to do right now in order to switch up my systems. And there's this like underlying weird lie we've told ourselves about, you have to get it all done right now. And I always appreciate it when people pull back the curtain and they're like, I fucked up, or I took a break, or I listened to what my body and my brain needed for my mental health. Like, I'm so appreciative when people do that, because we're not all just these productivity robots walking around. So thank you for pulling back the curtain on that.
It's my pleasure. I'm overly transparent.
I love it. No, I love it though. I'm sick and tired of people being like, I wake up at 5:30 every morning. There's no exceptions. Like, it's just not even the case. Last but not least, April, plug all your things. Where can people find you? Where can people learn more about you? All that good stuff.
Well, we would love to invite all of you to join our free Facebook group. Every week I go live in there and I teach another business strategy or a mindset thing, totally free. And the name of our company is Ask April Porter, because truly I do encourage business owners, if you have a question, just ask, right? And I'll answer it. I mean, it's not that big. I don't need to chart nickel and dime people for every, thing. It's about helping each other, help all boats rise with the tide, that kind of thing. Yeah. So definitely join that, or if you like. And then we have a podcast called the Infinite Franchisee Show, where that I host every week with more awesomeness in it. And other than that, askaprilporter.com. That's my website. Go there. If you need a consult or something, I'm happy to consult with you. Love what I do. I love helping other people break through the barriers that have been holding them back in business ownership, because I know so many out there are 100% convinced that you can be successful, but yet you can't figure out why you're stuck.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to help you get over.
I love that. I will put all the links below. I love the Facebook group. That is so generous of you for going live every week. That is amazing. Seriously, people go join, check that out. That is incredible. April, you rock. Thank you for being here today. This is so fun.
Oh, thank you so much. I've so much enjoyed getting to know you and being here on your podcast. I know you're doing great things, and just keep it up.
I so hope you all enjoyed that episode. I loved talking to her about this totally new area for me, totally new area for, I know, a lot of people. And I thought it was so fun. And thank you so much, April, for being on the show. If you guys want to learn more about her, go follow her. She's on Instagram at Ask April Porter, and link is also in the show notes. She also has her own podcast, The Infinite Franchisee, which is just a stellar name. And she also has a free Facebook community. I think there's like 500 people on there. So you can go, you can check out, you can pick people's brains, get into the nitty gritties of it. But that community is called Franchisee Infinite Success. And again, all the links are in the show notes. I so hope you all enjoyed today. Quick little reminder at the very end of today's episode, if you are on my email list, you are getting you're getting some emails from me about a podcast raffle that we're doing right now. So just a reminder for everyone on my email list, that raffle closes tonight. So if you're listening to this on the day it comes out, which is the 27th of September, that raffle has closed this evening. It is a raffle where you put in ideas you want to hear on the podcast, episode topics, interviews, 5 favorite things Nicole does before bed. I don't know, stuff like that. But I really wanted to hear from you all what you wanted to hear on the show. And of course, as a huge thank you, because I know that this takes time out of your day. You have so many beautiful creative juices flowing, and I want to give you all a huge thank you. You are entered into a raffle to win Get Productive, which is my 6-week course all about helping you get out of burnout, achieve your goals, and create massive amounts of healthy productivity. And I'm so excited. That is one of my favorite courses I've made. It is just such a blast. And so you would get that for free if you enter in some podcast ideas and you're chosen. So announcement of who wins is going to be tomorrow. But again, you still have some time, and we'll probably do these, I don't know, once a year, once a half a year. That's a thing. Twice a year. Is the word that I was looking for there. But if you are not on my email list and you want to be, send me an email at hello@lifecoachbaker.com and just say, hi, I would like to be on your email list. Or if you want a little something out of it, you can go to lifecoachbaker.com/quiz and take the free quiz. Figure out which type of perfectionist you are. Are you an overachiever? Are you a people pleaser? Are you a procrastinator? The answer may surprise you. Again, totally free quiz, but you will be automatically entered into my email list. And you also get some free goodies from me as a thank you for taking the quiz. So you all, I try to say I love you and I adore you at the same time. I adore you. I love you all so much. I will talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Life Coach Baker podcast. Don't forget to go take the free quiz and find out what perfectionist type you are by visiting the link in the show notes or by going to lifecoachbaker.com/quiz. Also, take a moment to rate the podcast and write a review. It is the best way to get the word out there. Plus, you'll get the chance of having your review read on the show. Until next time, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.